Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert in the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as share ideas for economic growth and prosperity. Today on the program, we're going to discuss the state of manufacturing sector in Canada. Joining us today and back for a return visit is Chris Horgan, VP Operations XL Tool. XL Tool is a Canadian company located in Kitchener with a secondary location in Mexico called XL Tech. In business for more than 25 years, XL Tool is an expert in machining complex parts, building precision dies, and tooling for customers to use in production of some of the most finest and unique products around the world. Welcome back to the program, Chris.
Morning, Jocelyn. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us again. Chris, let's get right to it. Tell us what's new with XL. You're constantly reinventing yourself.
Yeah, the new word is pivot, which I don't like to use because it more or less states you're moving from something into another, and we're not. We're diversifying. So we are now control goods certified here at XL Tool. It's been a 2-year journey. We just had our audit by the control goods I guess you would call them the governing body. So we just got our approval. We just got our audit. So we passed. So we're control goods certified, ready to go. In 0809, we also diversified into nuclear. So we're doing a lot of nuclear machining currently right now, and the nuclear industry is very busy.
Amazing. So, Chris, tell us what goes into becoming control goods and why is it so important to you?
Well, I mean, we've been far behind our spending in the defense industry, and one thing that is, happening is the big spend, and the federal government's had to move forward with it. We should have been doing this 5, 10 years ago. So I think there's going to be huge opportunity. It is a long road getting your control goods, and it's a process. Now that we're control goods certified, that doesn't mean I've got POs on my desk. A lot of people, will ask me, "Oh, how's defense? Have you got any POs?" Well, no, it's not that simple. There's a lot of moving parts to it. I'm spending most of my time now doing business development, so I hit all the military shows, DevSec, CanSec, Best Defense, and it's a road. So I think the money will eventually trickle down, but I mean, it took us 5, 10 years to get into the nuclear industry. I'm suspecting it's going to be 10 to 15 for defense, and it has to happen. But I don't know where the money's going to be coming from or what angle, but we are quoting. So, and I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve right now. It is a complex journey, getting your control good certification, but we're there and we're ready to go. So.
It certainly is. We've been through that journey before. Chris,
Yeah.
according to the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, things are going well. Let's take a listen.
Economy's picking up. We're growing jobs at twice the rate in the United States. We're the fastest growth in foreign direct investment, investor confidence in Canada in over 2 decades, twice the rate of other countries. In the G7, we're projected to have the second fastest growth in the G7, not just this year, but next year going forward. So the country is stronger.
Chris, your thoughts. I'm hearing different from manufacturer that they certainly are having challenges. What say you?
Well, I know they did hit their 2% GDP, and that was by way of giving the military long overdue raises. I think they acquired the Canadian Coast Guard. So they did they did some moving around. So I think they've met that 2%. What more concerns me is the next 5%. And I haven't seen anything yet for that. I talked to a lot of people in the industry, and they're starting to see some movement. It's so large and so vast. By the time it breaks down, I'm an SME, right? I'm a 50-person crew. And we just haven't seen anything breaking free as of yet. And I was just at CanSec in Ottawa, and it was the biggest military. It was busy. Jocelyn, you were there. Like I couldn't believe the amount of people, but it was a similar, similar concerns. Where's the
Okay,
money and when's it flowing?
I'm going to stop you there. We got to go to break. We'll be right back on Canadian Innovators. We'll pick it up on the other side. And we're back. I'm speaking with Chris Horgan from XL Tools. Before the break, Chris, we were talking about the challenges of pivoting in the defense industry and the challenges of general manufacturing. Can you talk to us about pivoting and what all that entails for manufacturers in Canada?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is, getting your control goods, having say the group around you. I mean, you to get your control goods, you essentially have to have someone that wants you to manufacture a control good and has the need. So that was a challenge to get. It's a little bit about putting the cart before the horse, but we were able to. We had a need, and we've been quoting some smaller pieces. But the problem we're seeing is that when you get into defense industry, they want to send you large scale projects. Like they don't want me to make a component; they want me to make half a vehicle or a missile defense system, and that's really hard to understand and to break down. And it gets, it's challenging. And there's some things in place, hopefully, to get manufacturers together, whether it's through an association or the government fed dev to try to understand these bigger things. But there's a lot of moving parts. So one of the biggest challenges is knowing what to quote and what you can manufacture. And it is the defense industry isn't like nuclear and automotive. You have to be at these events, you have to meet people, you have to stay consistent with it. They have to know who you are before you're even going to get a shot at doing anything in defense. So it is a large time constraint industry.
And Chris, what are you hearing from other manufacturers that are trying to make a similar pivot? Is it the same story that you're hearing?
Yeah, what I'm hearing from, and I talked to a lot of people, Jocelyn, in regards to the Canadian Tooling Machining Association, and they're trying to figure the whole thing out too, like even how to get started, or what the events are like, joining CADSI to be entering all these events, and people want to hire a salesperson and just want to get quotes so they can get POs. Well, that's not how it works. You have to be there. You have to go to the events, and you have to know your business and know what you think you can or can't make. So it's a long road.
So, Chris, the Prime Minister also talked about projects of major importance. Are you hearing, especially not only in your association, but from your peers, are you hearing that they are penetrating these projects of major importance?
No, not as of yet. And it's the same thing. When's the money going to start to flow, and where is it coming from? And we're all hopeful that the money is going to come, and in what fashion we don't really know. I mean, we just did the sub deal, which I was shocked because I thought it was going to Hanwha, but looks like it was the German company. I forget their acronyms. But you know what I mean? Is that a good? So I talked to several people. Is that a good thing for Canada? Well, it is, because there's a lot of big players that will get busy supporting that. But again, it's going to be a lot of infrastructure first, right? They have to build the shipyards, somewhere to house the subs, and then there's procurement later on for maintenance. So it's a long, tedious road. So these are big announcements. It doesn't mean necessarily that there's work coming down the pipeline right now.
So, Chris, tell us about other challenges that manufacturers are having, not just the pivoting challenge. We also know that the tool and die industry and the mold making industry has had significant headwinds. Tell us about the other challenges that you're hearing from manufacturing that they're facing.
The real challenge right now, and everyone's struggling with, is the slowdown in the automotive industry. Um, we cannot forget that the automotive industry built this country, and that's not going away. And to think that we're going to go anywhere else other than United States to support that, I think is a far off dream. I mean, we can't, work with the EU or work with anyone else. We need to get a deal with the US, and it needs to happen soon, because all this people say, "Oh, how are the tariffs affecting you, the 232 and all the other tariffs?" Well, no one really understands them. And there's just, when that happens, there's nothing's happening. Everything
So,
gets stopped. So
so we're going to go to commercial. More on that with Chris Horgan from XL Tool when we continue on Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. My guest today is Chris Horgan, VP Operations, XL Tools. Chris, let's get into what's top of mind for Canadian manufacturing right now, which is a trade deal with the United States. Your view on how the trade deal is being handled.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of moving parts. I talked to my local MPPs. I've talked to my federal MPs. We just had we just had our we had an RTRI announcement, so we got some funding from the federal government. We had some ministers here, and we just talked about opportunities, and they said there's a lot happening in the background, which I hope that there is, but it's hard for us to see that. You see our premier, Doug Ford. I mean, I'm a huge fan of what he's doing. I said it a long time ago. We keep I think we keep trying to be friendly and making a deal, and we just, nothing happens. I mean, if you ask me my straight up opinion, I say put a hard stop to it. Shut down the border. You know what I mean? Like, make sure that they understand that we need this and they need it too. But if we keep, trying to tiptoe around it and make a good deal, like, and they say no, a bad deal's, you know, no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, I'm not sure I agree. We have to have a deal. And if that means we have to strong arm it, I do agree with Doug Ford and how he's handling it. Like, enough's enough. We're all dying a slow, steady death. Why don't we just stop this thing, send everybody home for 2 months, shut down the border, and say, we're ready, and we're not doing anything until you guys make a deal. Enough's enough.
Well,
And
strong
I said
words.
that a year ago.
So strong words, Chris. U.S. President Donald Trump just announced a new 50% tariff on some Canadian products, generally ones that are outside the Canadian-U.S. free trade agreement. How's that going to impact XL Tools?
Again, more uncertainty. The more uncertain we have, the more things just stop. I had several companies call me and say, they do a lot of exporting. XL Tool doesn't do a lot of exporting to the States. I had some companies call me that do, and they're really concerned. The costs. I had one gentleman. He's in the wire. He uses copper wire and makes electrical parts. He says this is going to wipe him out. When do we realize that this is really hurting us, and we need to, really get aggressive with this, as opposed to trying to be friendly and doing it in the back. I don't know what's happening in the back. They say there's things happening, there's communication, but we don't see it. The Canadians don't see it. And we're painting a picture that I believe isn't factual. Like there's a lot of companies out there hurting, and I don't think the general public has seen the true hurt yet of this.
100%. Chris, Premier Doug Ford had some strong words for the president. Let's take a listen.
Majority is going to be here in Ontario. That's why we can't roll over. We have to hit back. We have to, rather than be on our back heel, as I said, we have to go forward, take the offense. We are an energy powerhouse, and we could dismantle the U.S. if we wanted to, if we all work together. No matter if it's the electricity, and I'm not speaking for the other provinces, I'm going to be very clear. The potash, the oil, we're their #1 customer in the world. They need to feel the pain rather than us constantly feeling the pain.
So, Chris, can Canada really dismantle the U.S.? Is that a realistic expectation?
Yeah, Yeah, I think Premier Ford is not far off. We could, it could hurt if we started being as aggressive with them as they are with us. Yeah, it's going to hurt them in a big way. I imagine things would happen much quicker than what they are. And when you're getting bullied every day, you can't just, he mentions the schoolyard bully. Well, we just keep crying about it in the corner, not doing anything about it. So let's fight back. Let's give them what they're giving us and see where it goes, because we're not doing ourselves any favors right now.
So, Chris, things seem to be escalating between Canada and the United States. Is this a wise strategy, or should we dial the temperature down? And we just got about 10 seconds left.
I think we tried to dial things down and it hasn't helped us.
Okay, we need to take a
So
quick
I
break.
need to
We need to take a quick break. Don't go away. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. My guest today is Chris Horgan, VP Operations, Excel Tools. Let's focus on the issue of unfair trade, which you highlighted in your last visit. Can you talk about unfair trade and its effect on Canadian manufacturing?
It's huge, Jocelyn, and no one's talking about it. And honestly, it just makes me crazy. So when we had our federal ministers here, I brought them. We had a nice chat in our boardroom, and I told them what's happening. I said, China is dumping, and they're building tooling cheaper than I could even buy the materials for. So they did it in automotive, and we allowed it to happen. Don't even get me started about allowing Chinese vehicles in Canada. What's happening now, I can tell you, is so my nuclear customers, and I've got some big nuclear customers, not going to mention by name, but I do a lot of work in the nuclear industry. Guess where they were the last couple months? They're all flying over to China to get better pricing on components for our nuclear industry. And defense is not going to be any different. Everyone's looking for the bottom line, cheapest part. And until we realize, hey, it's going to cost a little bit more and we got to do it in Canada, that's the only way we're going to be successful. So there's a lot, Jocelyn, that's still happening in the background with China kicking that. How do I compete with someone that artificially deflates the value of everything they have and sells it for a cheaper price? How do I do that? And Canadians they buy it and they don't even know. They're unwillingly buying this stuff and they don't even know. You buy a Chinese vehicle, you are cutting the throat of GDP in Canada like you have no idea. And you know what? May not even care because you're in a different industry. But when we don't have GDP anymore and we're broke and you're still driving your Chinese vehicle, well, maybe then you'll understand. But by then it may be too late.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Has anything been done at any levels of the government to address this?
No. And I keep hearing, well, China's China's product is poor, their metal is worse. They're not going to be able to supply what we need. These guys we allowed them. Their tooling is incredible. The quality is there. The timing is there. China's mandate is to take over manufacturing globally. And we've allowed it. I've tried to stop it myself. 2 years ago, I said, I'm not going to China. My customers all went to China directly. I lost $4 million in sales in 6 months. I had no choice. I still utilize China because I have to. And I tell the government, we need policy. Well, they say policy won't work. Well, eventually everyone will stop going to China. Well, you know what, guys? It's not happening. And China is still in a position to destroy our manufacturing. And if we talk about sovereignty, we talk about defense. If we don't make things to defend ourselves, we got two choices. Start speaking American or start speaking Chinese. And I know what I'd rather speak. So
Chris, you had strong words about dealing with the United States. What would you do to stop the dumping in Canada, which costs Canadians jobs and our economy?
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. We've spent 30 years shutting shutting off our tap for manufacturing. So I can't just open the tap tomorrow. I don't have the infrastructure to produce what we need. So it has to be done cautiously. I'm not going to give you a straight up answer for this, Jocelyn, because I think we need to sit down with our governments, federal and provincial, and come up with a plan. But just expecting that they're just going to go away eventually isn't going to do it. So, put some rules in place, put some policy in place. And every time I say that, everyone's like, "Oh, you can't do it. Oh, it's not that easy." Oh, you know what I mean? Stop giving me excuses. Do something.
Yeah,
General Motors has just announced that they want all their tooling made in North America and specifically Canada as of this year. And we're very busy quoting General Motors work. I'm excited about it. My concern is it's so big. When they get the numbers and see the timing, I don't know how they're going to handle it.
well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks, Chris, for joining us today to talk about manufacturing in Canada.
Thanks, Justin.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks to my guest, Chris Horgan, VP Operations, XL Tool. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for watching Canadian Innovators. If you're an innovator, tell us your story. Write to us at info@thenewsforum.ca, and we'll see you next time.